We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday, and we have Eric with us. Now, he was just on a short time ago, but there's so much fucked up shit going on. I thought we'd turn to the guy who helps us understand fucked up shit. That's a talent you maybe didn't know you had until you got onto TikTok, but you help people understand fucked up shit. And we got plenty of it today, don't we?
Oh yeah, we definitely do. And I've always had a way of just explaining things slightly different, um, and looking at things a little deeper like I do, which seems to help. But you're right, I didn't know how good my talent for explaining fucked up shit was till I got onto TikTok and it became kind of a thing I'm doing on the daily basis. But
Your
there's
niche.
so much fucked up shit. There's never an absence of stuff to talk about.
No, definitely not. There's definitely never an absence of things to talk about. And so we are here to talk about you know, with all the fucked up shit that's going on, is there one thing that stands out or concerns you the most right now?
Oh, probably the flat out destruction of the White House at this point. First he says they might have to take a little bit of the facade down and it would just be a connecting corridor. It wouldn't be that bad. Now we find out then they tore off the entire facade, and now it sounds like they're tearing out or going to tear out the entirety of the East Wing, and that could be gone by as soon as this weekend. No care to how they're doing it. They're just taking a backhoe to it. That's not how you treat historical buildings. And
No.
some people have suggested that there could be some major environmental concerns because of when the East Wing was built. There may be asbestos and other things like that. And they're not taking any of that into consideration. They're just bulldozing.
Well, it's funny with all the tragic things potentially happening here. That one did stand out to me too, because it's pretty clearly understood that in order to do something like what Donald Trump is doing, you need congressional approval. Now, Donald Trump has done a lot of things without congressional approval. And if you're looking for someone to blame, that would be all Republican members of Congress because they could stop this at any particular time. But when you desecrate the White House, the people's house, if you will, uh, when Donald Trump is dead or out of office, that's not going to go away. That's a problem for the Republicans. They're going to want some accountability for it, especially if he builds some monstrosity behind it and is completely disrespectful and distracting from the White House itself.
Yeah, you're right. And it's not going to go away. Now, my question that I had the last time I was on the podcast, I still haven't gotten an answer to, is what happens when Donald Trump, doesn't make it to the end of his term? Or in this
Yeah.
case, doesn't make it to the end of construction. You know, does JD Vance finish it? And maybe it depends on how close it is to being done. What happens if it's not done before 2029? Do the Democrats finish it? Or do they tear it down and spend even more money getting rid of it and trying to rebuild it back to how it was? This is going to be a no-win situation here for either party. They can't get away from it if they're Republicans, and they can't the Democrats are going to have to decide what to do after it's built. And do you just leave it and deal with it? This thing's going to be gaudy. It's not going to be well done. Knowing that Trump's involved, it's probably going to be built by the lowest possible bidder who probably won't get paid or paid very little. So there's no guarantee that this is even going to be structurally sound when it's all said and done. There's a whole lot going on here. And much like everything else with Donald Trump, because he's doing it without permits and without congressional approval, etc., the people involved could ultimately face criminal prosecutions for this. At least I would think.
I would I would think criminal prosecution is definitely a possibility. I mean, where is the money coming from? Now, Donald Trump said a couple of places. First, private donors. Uh, then, what else was he talking about? He was talking, well, first he said he was paying for it himself. And then he said private donors. And then we have this whole other thing where he's demanding $230 million from the DOJ for these alleged malicious prosecutions against him, which are absolutely ridiculous. Seemed kind of weird that the price of the ballroom and the price he was demanding from the DOJ was similar. But wait a minute. We came out today and they say now this monstrosity is going to be $300 million to build this fucking thing. And understand this thing is 90,000 square feet. It's virtually as big as the White House itself. It's not going to be hidden behind the White House. It's going to be this fucking eyesore in and around the White House.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be one hell of an eyesore. Now, I don't know if you saw the video on TikTok, and I don't remember if we talked about it last time I was on the podcast, but somebody suggested on TikTok that Donald Trump may have found his new way of funding all of this, and that would be to sell off chunks of rubble of the White House as
Jesus
another
Christ.
grift. Somebody suggested. Now they have not come out. This is nothing official from Donald Trump or anything like that. But this guy he goes, this is my conspiracy theory. Could they be doing this? And if it was anybody else, you'd say that would never happen in a million years. But because it's Donald Trump and the way he likes to grift, it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to get, small desktop size pieces that you could say, oh yeah, own a piece of the White House, only 99.99, or only three payments of 99.95, like you used to see on TV, whatever, something like that. It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise you, mainly because he's done it before. Didn't he sell off pieces of his suit when he was arrested? Didn't he sell off some things from the assassination attempt? This guy is well known for grifting and being opportunistic. I hadn't thought about that, and it sounds crazy, but it's distinctly possible. I just let's just we'll wait and see what happens, and if it actually comes to fruition, Eric predicted it here.
I didn't predict it. I took that from somebody else. But
Okay.
it was. I saw the video on TikTok. I don't remember what the creator's channel name was to give them credit for it. And I'm like, first I was like, well, wait a minute. That just sounds a little far-fetched. But it's Donald Trump. So maybe, and by the
Yeah.
time it was all said and done, you know, you have to stop and question it.
The thing that troubles me about this is that many things that he has done will imprint on this country negatively for a long, long time. But this is a historical building. No doubt has some protection historically because of what it is and where it is and how long it's been there. Um, Donald Trump just goes rogue, does whatever the fuck he wants. The Republicans sit there with their thumb up their ass. Democrats can't do anything because they don't have power. But it seems to me Donald Trump, and maybe this is about Donald Trump's mortality. Maybe it's getting to him. He's thinking about a legacy. And maybe he thinks if he builds a nice big building, he'll have a nice big legacy. I'll just say this in advance, and I will make this prediction. Donald Trump will be remembered into history and beyond. He will always be remembered for what he's done as president of the United States. But those memories won't be good. He will be a pariah. And building a 90,000 square foot ballroom ain't going to fucking fix it.
No, it's not. And like I said, what happens with this ballroom may depend on how long and how much of it is completed by the time he's no longer with us. If he by some miracle makes it to the end of his term, the report I saw earlier today, the article said that he is just hoping that it is done, but by the end of his term. They don't even know if it'll be completed before 2029, as is. Um, so if he doesn't make it, what happens then? Does it get torn down? Does it get finished? We'll have to see. But his legacy is going to be nothing great. They're not going to go back in history and say Donald Trump was the greatest president of all time. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me. We've talked about it before, and I know it's a high bar to pass constitutional amendments. It takes two-thirds of both chambers and 38 states to agree. But it wouldn't surprise me if a couple of constitutional amendments get passed after Donald Trump is out of office in response to him being president, trying to claw back some of the powers that he has expanded on.
Well, let me ask you this. We're talking about the end of his term, and I'm thinking maybe even quicker than that. I'm thinking about maybe a year out. Since making additions or changes to the White House is under the purview of Congress, in 2026, if the Democrats take control of the House and the Senate and would have the position of power, could they not just stop it then, since they're the ones that have the control?
In theory, problem is they would have to have enough support because they would pass a law saying Donald Trump must stop all construction, etc. Problem is Donald Trump would veto it. They would have to have enough of a majority or enough Republicans on board to go around his veto. But then who enforces it? The DOJ. DOJ is under Donald Trump's control and he's got a loyalist there. They wouldn't pursue it. The only other option would be to impeach and remove at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Congress can even get us out of this one. I think the only person who can do something about that ballroom at this point would be the next person to occupy the Oval Office.
Yeah. Although Congress, if there is a flow of money coming through Congress, they could just shut that off. Or if there's some question as to where the money can come from, the House and the Senate could investigate the fuck out of that and probably find out where it's coming from is a little shady.
That's true. Them doing investigations would be a good thing. And I guarantee you there are going to be numerous congressional investigations into Donald Trump activities when Democrats are back in power because there's so much going on. Who's funding the ballroom? Who signs off on this? Who signs off on that? What is ICE doing? Who knew what about what when ICE was doing what, etc. There are going to be a lot of people pulled before Congress and have to answer questions under oath.
I was talking about that with Will and some other folks. Um, you and I both know that when this is done, and it will end, these types of things always do. Donald Trump will die or walk away in shame or whatever the fuck he does, but this will be done. You and I both know people like Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, Pete Hegseth, um, Lutnick, Besant. These people are all going to be investigated intensively, and they could very well get indicted. We know that can happen to them. Do they not know that? Or do they not care? Or do they just believe Donald Trump and this fucking rogue nation will go on forever? I don't get it. I mean, they don't seem to be thinking straight.
I think it's a couple things. One, I think they believe Donald Trump will ultimately save them. I think they fully believe that, uh, you know, Donald Trump will grant them a pardon before he leaves office. So they have no criminal thing. And some of them actually believe in what they're doing, and they think they are setting themselves up to the point where JD Vance or Don Jr. or whoever the Republican is going to be their winner in 28, so that there's just going to be another Republican. So they would own the DOJ again, and they wouldn't be prosecuted, and they could just run out the clock of any potential statute of limitations. They believe their own hype that they are, this
Invincible?
unstoppable force, and they're
Yeah.
not.
No,
They're
no, they're
highly
not.
unpopular.
If your plan is to get a pardon from Donald Trump before he leaves office in 2028, what happens if he strokes out and chokes on a Big Mac in 2026? You think JD Vance is going to give you a pardon? I'm guessing not if he's looking to try to get reelected.
Yeah, I really think we've talked about it. JD Vance is going to have to be the guy to rebrand the Republicans if something happens to Donald Trump using whatever time he's got left. And I don't think he does. I think he sacrifices some of these people to the country in a way to say, okay, well, I was only the VP. I didn't have a lot of authority. I do now. We know Donald Trump is gone. I can't go after him, but we're going to go after everybody connected to him and try to reignite the Republican Party because the momentum's turning against the Republicans, and I think some of them realize it, but they haven't gotten to that point where they've said, okay, we got to do something yet. Um, but if they lose the midterms or Donald Trump goes away, they know without him, they have to rebrand. I guarantee you they're having those conversations of what to do if something happens to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and the thing about it is Donald Trump isn't going to last. You can just see it in his health and what we know about his health. Um, Not only will they have to rebrand, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out on Donald Trump when he has no power, whether it be Epstein, whether it be some of these sexual assaults, whether it be him grifting money or taking bribes or dealing with Russia. Once he's no more and has no power, a lot of shit is going to come out. So whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you better not only be trying to rebrand, but you better be going after Donald Trump. You better be saying Donald Trump is the worst guy in the world and I'm going to make it better. Because if you continue to stand with Donald Trump after he's dead, you're done. You're done because everybody in the country, everybody in the world will hear things that have come out that have been successfully hidden, and it's going to be appalling.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the time to walk away from Donald Trump for the Republicans, even the ones now, if they're going to try to rebrand, I think that window has passed.
Oh, yeah, it's too
Um,
late.
the time to rebrand should have happened January 6th, 2021, and they did for the most part. You know, uh, they brought him up on charges. And I know Democrats had control of both chambers, but they had the trial. You had several Republicans vote to convict. Um, and then you had Mitch McConnell even coming out publicly saying, well, if he was still in office by the time we held this vote, we would have removed him. But it's no longer a political question, it's a criminal question. Let the DOJ handle it. That was the time to have him be a pariah, to walk away and move on. And then what do? They elect Kevin McCarthy as speaker, and about 6 weeks later, maybe midsummer, I don't remember the exact time frame. They go down to Mar-a-Lago, kiss the ring, bring him back into the fold, and he pretty much says, "Yeah, I'm running in 2024," almost immediately.
Yeah.
They had their chance to walk away, and they didn't. They could have uh, as a party said, we're not allowing you to run in the primary for the Republicans. They didn't. They let him be in the primary. They could have done all of these things. It is too late for most of the Republican Party. They are going to be connected to Donald Trump. It is not going to be a quick rebrand for them. They're not going to be able to fix this in 2 to 4 years.
And I tell you this, the fact that they brought Donald Trump back into the fold, got him elected president, support him now with all the destruction he's doing, that tells you how bad a shape the Republican Party is in. They had Donald Trump. He lost an election to Joe Biden. The only option they had was to bring their loser president back and run him again. In the entire party of the Republicans, they couldn't find a better candidate. They couldn't find a better candidate than Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump just did it again. The Republican Party, prior to Donald Trump getting elected in 2024, was in a shambles. It is a disaster now. And I think they realize that. I think that's why they're doing this smash and grab thing and trying to get as much destroyed as possible before Donald Trump bites the big one. And I mean dead. I don't mean the other thing.
Yeah, you're right. Um, I think they didn't have very many possibilities, but this isn't the first time they've had to go back to the past to dig up a winner.
True.
They did that here in Iowa. They were having trouble beating any Republican candidate for governor, And then after like 12 years, or it was 12 years, I think, they went back, dug up Terry Branstad, brings him out of the woodwork. And a lot of people went, oh, yeah, we like him, and voted him back in. Republicans have been doing this for a long time. They could have had they had potential candidates. They had some people who could have ran and probably been okay. They didn't see it because, as we've talked about a lot, there's that 30 to 35% of the MAGA base that they were afraid of losing. Because if they didn't go back and kiss the ring and bring Donald Trump back into the fold, they were afraid that those voters were never going to vote for Republicans again.
Just off topic a little bit because you are where you're from and you know a little bit about this. We know Iowa has been a red state, at least in recent times, certainly with Donald Trump. And you had noted some kind of changes in the vibe in Iowa. And I'm wondering what you're seeing now. Jody Ernst isn't running. Uh, you got a bunch of radical right people. And you said you sensed a different tone in what was going on. Is that still headed that way?
I think so. I think as long as he gets the nomination in the primary, and Rob Sand ends up being the nominee for governor, I think there is a good chance he becomes governor of Iowa. He is currently the only statewide elected Democrat in the state.
Okay.
Um, and he won election 4 years ago in the 2022 midterms, uh, where we reelected Kim Reynolds.
Right.
And so I think there is a good chance. And one of the reasons I think the biggest shift hasn't even happened yet. And we talk about with this government shutdown about how November 1st may be the deadline for them, when people start not getting their food stamp benefit, their SNAP benefit, that may be when pressure mounts on Republicans to come to the table. Well, here in Iowa, we've talked about it before, but I'll remind people, starting January 1, they passed a bunch of changes to the food stamp program in Iowa. They applied to the USDA under Donald Trump and got a waiver they, I believe, had tried to get under the Biden administration and was routinely denied.
Right.
They want to deny purchasing any sodas, teas, anything but 100% juices on food stamps. No sugar, no flour, no baking chips, no spices, no gravy mixes, no pre-made bakery products of any kind, including like store bakery breads. I believe like commercial, like Wonder Bread or like your name brand breads. I think those are still allowed, but like you can't just get your baked fresh today bread. I believe is going to be out. No baked fresh bakery treats. Um, no pre-made like meals to go type things, like where you got like a meatloaf and sides that's cold. Can't get that. No cold chicken, no cold subs, none of that. And that's only a partial list of what they are not allowing. And that all starts January 1. And that was asked for and approved by Kim Reynolds, our governor, who is not seeking reelection, and this administration, the Republican administration. So when people go to use their food stamp benefits and go, well, what the fuck can I still buy?
Yeah.
They're going to be looking for someone to blame. Just like when this government shutdown hits November 1 and people don't get their food stamp money, they're going to be looking for someone to blame. And the only people to blame in either case is Republicans. So I think it could shift Iowa. Now, I'm thinking at best, probably two, maybe on a stretch, three of the House seats of our four would flip. We might get a Democratic senator. So far, it doesn't sound like anybody decent, nobody that I've recognized name wise as far as being like an amazing candidate has come forward for Senate on the Republican side. Um, I think the guy that the front runner right now on the Democratic side, I want to say he's a para Olympian, I think.
Okay.
Um, but I could be wrong. I know there was I'm pretty sure there was a para Olympian that had announced a candidacy. I just don't remember if he's still the front runner or not. Um, but I just think the tone is going to shift because, you know, you're going to have to actually look at the candidates and not vote for the person who's just been in charge forever for a lot of these races. And it doesn't look good for Republicans because everything's burning around us.
Do you think that's why Jody Ernst decided not to run? Do you think she just kind of felt she's going to get beat?
Yeah, I do, 100%. I think she has ambitions potentially of running for something else. I think she may even attempt, I don't know, a governor's run here in 4 years, depending on if I'm right and Rob Sand wins. Um, but she didn't want to do it coming off of a loss, and she had a couple of sound bites that are going to hurt her. Before they
Yeah.
passed the one big beautiful bill, they were talking about Medicaid at one of her town halls, and somebody said, "If I lose my Medicaid, I'm going to die." And she said, "Well, we're all going to die someday." And then she's at the Iowa State Fair, and a lady comes up and talks about all of the good things that Medicaid had done for her child who needed some major surgery or something. I don't remember what the procedure was. And said that, we still need Medicaid for him. We could lose that. And they'd already passed the one big beautiful bill with the cuts. And all she said was, well, we'll take it under advisement. And the gal tried to get some more thoughts on this or a better clarity. And one of her aides was like, well, we've already answered your question. You need to move along.
Yeah, of course. I've got a list of the people that are running for the Senate in Iowa. For the Republicans, a guy named Jim Carlin, former state lawmaker from Sioux City, um, and Ashley Hinson of Marion, a congresswoman representing Iowa's second district, who on August 23rd said she would run for a third term in Congress, announced her campaign for the U.S. Senate hours after Ernst confirmed on September 2nd that she would not seek reelection. So the standard fare with the Republicans. Now, on the Democratic side, there's Bob Kraus of Burlington, former state legislator, president of the Veterans National Recovery Center. Nathan Sage of Indianola was the first Democrat to announce his candidacy for the U.S. Senate. The Army and Marine Corps veteran, former Chamber of Commerce director, Josh Turek, a state representative from Council Bluffs, and Zach Walls, a state senator from Coralville. So, I mean, I don't know any of those candidates from the Democratic side. Do any of them make any sense or spark any interest from you?
Those names don't ring a bell to me specifically, although I don't know a lot of um, the state reps by name. I know a few of the ones that are or that were notorious troublemakers, but not those names don't stick out. But just based on the resumes you read there, some of them look kind of good. You've got the Democratic. I already forgot his name. The guy you said was the Democratic candidate with the Veterans Association. You
Yeah.
know that already looks good. Um, I want to say that is it the Turek from Council Bluffs? He might have been the one I was thinking might have been the para Olympian, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that too.
What about those two Republican candidates? Any of them? There's two of them. Any of them that seem particularly strong or that stand out to you?
Uh, Hinson stands out a little bit just because she's already a current state rep. Um,
Yeah.
and she did win her reelection campaign for her second term with a slightly bigger margin. But when she got elected the first time, she only won by 6 votes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I don't think she's
She's a
got
hot property.
necessarily, yeah, I don't know if she's necessarily, a good fit there. But I didn't think Joni Ernst was going to be a good candidate at the time either. When they had a whole bunch of stuff that were problematic with how she was running her campaign,
Yeah.
like they proved some of what she was saying was false by people that knew her, and she still got voted in. Like she said when she ran that when she grew up, like she remembers having to go to school wearing bread bags as shoes, and I'm pretty sure they proved that one to be actually false. Um, but she still got reelected. But that was, of course, uh, see, she would have gotten reelected 12 years ago, or elected the first time 12 years ago. So that would have been 2014. So still during the end of the Obama run. So it
Right.
made sense they picked it that they put in a Republican because, anti-Obama everything.
I will say this about what Jody Ernst said about the bread bags. I'd never heard of anybody wearing them as shoes, but I will tell you in the 1960s, while I was in grade school, you had those big rubber black buckle boots in the winter, and they always leaked, that your feet would just get soaking wet. And it was commonplace for kids to come with their feet in bread bags and then inside the boot. It wasn't their shoe, but it was hopefully another barrier to the wetness in the middle of winter because the boot sucked. I'm sure there'll be people in
May-
the audience who remember doing that because we all did it here in Minnesota.
Now, maybe that was what she meant, but that wasn't what she said.
Of course
Um,
not.
and of course, maybe she clarified the comment, but even so, like at that point, I thought maybe the damage had been done. But this is typical Republicans. They run weird candidates and weak candidates. I just think that with as bad as things get here in Iowa and nationwide, that if the tide starts turning like I think it's going to, or like I kind of feel it is, especially with Rob Sand going for governor, um, he could maybe pull some of these seats that are close. The only seat I would I would be 100% surprised if they ended up flipping would be Iowa 4, which is the Sioux City northwest corner of the state, like the northwest quadrant, because you almost split Iowa in four, basically.
Right.
Um, it's actually relatively ungerrymandered. Iowa has an independent council that does the maps, and they're mostly fair. Um, but the thing is, that seat has been Republican held longer than I've been alive.
Right.
And that's the same seat that voted in Steve King. So I would be hesitant to expect them to be able to flip that no matter who they run in that seat.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the farmers in Iowa? How are they doing?
I haven't heard a lot personally, but I can't imagine that they're doing well. You have the foreign aid getting cut, and now, sure, Donald Trump tried to pass something or rebrand something to this America First aid or whatever. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah.
Um, he tried to rebrand this foreign aid deal to America First, saying, "Well, we're going to buy from American farmers, et cetera, first," which was always the thing, but they only bought a fraction of what was being sold previously.
Right.
So their contracts aren't being met. And then you have um, China saying, well, because of the tariffs, we're not buying soybeans. I mean, they can't be doing well. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, yeah, we're going to buy Argentina beef.
Yeah,
So,
that's the next thing I was going to bring up. People, he is saying that people are saying that beef is too high, and it is. He also said that's the only thing that's too high. Everything else is going down, which is a flat out lie. But his answer to that was, well, we'll just buy beef from Argentina to bring down the prices. And Argentina is our competitor at this point because of the tariffs, and people are buying Argentinian beef over American beef because it's a better price. So when he says that, the ranchers said, listen, that's bullshit, push back against him. I know we do import beef from other countries. That happens. But what he's basically doing is bringing in beef from another country and undercutting the ranchers here in this country. Now, the ranchers got mad about it. And the ranchers said, this is ridiculous. You can't do that. That shouldn't happen. And what Donald Trump did, he told them that they were dumb, that he knew more about ranching than they did. They don't understand. How do you think that went over with ranchers? I know some ranchers. They ain't gonna cotton to that very well, I don't think.
yeah, no, they're not going to take that very well. I've got farmers in my family, extended family, aunts and uncles and cousins and things that are, multi-generational farmers.
Right.
And you're going to try Donald Trump, who was born to money, who made his money in New York real estate, has probably never stepped foot on a farm in his life. Well, I guess no, he did, because wasn't that what they held the one rally in Butler, Pennsylvania? Wasn't that at a
Yeah.
farm? You know,
And
maybe
somebody
something
shot
like
at him
that.
there.
Yeah. Um, but maybe outside of being there for a campaign event of some kind, he has never stepped a foot on a farm and never done a day's worth of farm work in his life. Telling him that he knows more about farming and ranching than they do, that is absolutely absurd on its face. And, when we say Donald Trump is an idiot, this is the type of things that make us think that there is no way. Now, there is a section of the MAGA base that will, one, believe him,
Of course.
and two, they think that he has some special knowledge that we don't have, and even the ranchers don't have, by virtue of just being in the office of the president, that they're feeding him with extra information. So clearly he knows more. They don't want to accept the fact that they were conned by a dumb fuck.
Yeah, I mean, there are some of these people you can only assume they just aren't willing to admit they were wrong, no matter how badly they were wrong. And I will just say this: as soon as the farmers started getting kicking back against Donald Trump, he said, "Oh, we'll bail you out." And I think you and I have said, I don't know that he'll bail him out because there's really nothing for him to obtain from them. There's nothing transactionally that he can gain from them. So he might say that sort of thing. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Donald Trump is a pathological liar. He says a lot of shit that never happens. But my point is he talked about getting another bailout for the farmers. But have we seen that? Have we seen any movement toward that? Harvest season, we're in the middle of harvest season when these people are going to be losing a lot of money, but there's been no effort to bail out the farmers, kind of like what you and I said.
Yeah, there really has been no movement. Of course, a bailout would take Congress, but they can't even pass a damn budget. So
Well, they're on
them passing,
vacation.
right, them passing any sort of bailout ain't going to happen. Now, I did hear in at least one or two news articles that at least certain an amount of USDA offices are going to be open or opening back up. They're calling some of the employees back as essential because they do have some amount of funds that are still available that they can use as a potential partial bailout for the farmers, but it's not nearly enough. Like they were talking, what I don't remember what the figure was. Wasn't it like 80 to 120 billion or something was going to be what is needed to make it even close to right? And the article I read said, well, they've got access to 5 billion
Yeah,
that
I
they
heard
can
five,
help with.
10 billion. Well, just,
Yeah.
you have to understand the last bailout, which really in the first term was about $50 billion, and that wasn't enough. People have to understand the amount of soybeans we sold prior to Donald Trump's, you know, causing the problems he did in the first term are far more than after the bailout. There was a lot of business lost by farmers. They were doing better with soybeans, but they weren't selling as much before Donald Trump fucked it up. So now they're selling no soybeans. Last time he bailed them out, $50 billion. We're talking about $100 billion to fix it, and he's talking $5 or $10 billion. That's almost a fucking insult. You're not going to save your farm with 20% or 20% of what you actually need. That's not going to be of any help.
Yeah, that's just buying time at that point until
Yeah.
they can figure something else out. Um, and is it something? Sure. Am I going to give him credit for at least doing something? I'm a little amazed that he's doing something.
Well, he hasn't done it yet.
Well, this is all supposedly, but again, he's going to need Congress to pass a bailout, a full bailout, and that doesn't seem to happen. Now, what happens? And Democrats, if they come to the Democrats and say, hey, okay, we need to pass this bailout for the farmers, and the government still shut down, Democrats go, okay, we'll tack that on. Give us something in the healthcare that we want. They will use it as a bargaining chip. And if they've already opened the government back up, I could see the Democrats saying, yeah, we agree that we got to bail out the farmers, but we want, you know, a restoration of another line item from the one big beautiful bill, one of the cuts. We want that. We want those back too. You want something, we want something. Let's make it happen.
How do you think the farmers are feeling about being promised a bailout, not getting the bailout as yet, and even if they do get a bailout, it's $5 or $10 billion. But on the other hand, he just sends Argentina $40 billion because they're having a rough time. That's what he said. This has got to piss off the farmers a little bit. He's helping another country, a guy who claims he's America first. He's leaving the farmers just to twist in the wind, and he's helping some country in South America because he happens to like the guy who's running for the leadership in that country, who probably doesn't have a chance to win.
Yeah, that whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, I'd be pissed if I was them. The one of the things though that is probably going to help Donald Trump in this case is he has said he wants to send them $40 billion, but we haven't seen any movement of that 40 billion going. He says, well, if my guy doesn't win, there'll be no money. So it's a potential promise of aid down the road. And again, that would probably also take Congress. So again, Democrats could say, okay, you want to give aid to Argentina? Okay, here's another line item of stuff we want, back of equivalent value. And Donald Trump is not a good negotiator. He thinks he is. Other people have bought into the fact that he's a good negotiator. But I think he would lose those negotiations in their entirety. In fact, speaking of negotiations, I saw an article today or yesterday, as you're listening to this, where they were talking about Mike Johnson getting replaced as not as speaker, but as the negotiator to end the government shutdown. And their suggestion for the person to do it, Donald Trump, because he's
Oh,
a
geez.
master negotiator.
But here's the problem with that. He's refusing to negotiate.
Yes.
Now, the Republicans in the House are starting to feel the pressure that their constituents are going to take a pounding if it continues with the shutdown past November 1st. So the GOP senators went and talked to Donald Trump. No doubt they were trying to convince him to give a little so they can get this CR done, this continuing resolution. So the Democrats say, hey, we'd like to meet with you too and negotiate this out. He said, I'd be happy to sit down with you, but pass the budget first. So basically saying, yeah, I'll talk to you. We'll work some things out, but give me what I want first. Now, anybody that knows Donald Trump that does that, you're a dumb motherfucker because he will leave you hanging every time. He's done it a million times. The Republicans have done it to the Democrats every goddamn time. I'm surprised and appreciate the fact that the Democrats are standing strong at this point. This is what they needed to do years ago. Force these people to capitulate, force them to bend a knee to us, because I personally think that the Republicans will give in at some point before November 1st, because if they don't, they have no chance at anything with the healthcare going crazy and with SNAP being cut off. Given that, I heard a figure, 45% of the people, Republicans get SNAP, 35% from Democrats get SNAP. So they get more SNAP payments than Democrats. I don't know if they realize that, but that's going to take a huge hit on their popularity if 45% of their constituents get the food taken out of their mouth.
Yeah, exactly. They don't realize, some of them don't realize it because much like with Medicaid, Since it's state funded, different states have different names for the food program too. So they may
Right.
not even realize till their money doesn't hit that, oh shit, that was funded by food stamps or SNAP benefits. Or they still think it's food stamps. And when they're talking about cutting SNAP, some people don't realize it's the same thing. They just rebranded it, in the early 2000s because they had gone away nationwide from having paper food stamps.
Right.
Um, and I remember what those, were like, but that's a whole nother story. The whole thing is when those benefits are gone, Republicans are going to feel the pressure and they're not going to have any way out of this but to cave. And Donald Trump is not wanting to negotiate right now. So the idea of replacing Mike Johnson as a negotiator with Donald Trump doesn't solve anything. But it may also say, hey, wait a minute. If they're talking about having no faith in Mike Johnson to negotiate, we've talked about the idea that he may not survive as speaker. Maybe that uh, is a sign that they're getting ready to replace him as speaker too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's probably true. He's in a no-win situation, whether it be the Epstein files or whether it be the shutdown or any other number of things. I think Mike Johnson isn't long for his job, and I think he thinks it too. If you look at him on TV when he's being interviewed as of late, he looks like he's going through some things. He's a nervous motherfucker at this point, and he should be. Um, one of the things that I suggested, maybe I mentioned this to you before. If Donald Trump is most concerned about the Epstein files being released or it being voted on, what they theoretically could do is kick out Mike Johnson. And if they kick out Mike Johnson, they have to find a replacement. And we know the last time that happened, it took a while. It could maybe take a long while. And the fact of the matter is if there's no Speaker of the House, you can't do anything in the House, including um, signing that discharge bill to release the Epstein files. I wouldn't surprise me if Donald Trump was using that as another way to delay this even further.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. The problem is if Mike Johnson brings the House back into session, which is what he would have to do to vote on anything, first thing he would have to do is swear in Representative Grijalva, or one of the first things. So she goes in, she could immediately sign that discharge petition. But
Right.
then if they vote to remove Mike Johnson in between, you're right, everything else grinds to a halt. But if they grind it all to a halt while the government is still shutting or shut down, Donald Trump lost his one thing because he won't be able to sit there and blame the Democrats anymore because the House can't function without a Speaker of the House. So then the shutdown would go back, even though no one's believing it anyway when he says it's a Democratic shutdown, it would go back to being firmly at the feet of Republicans. It's a losing strategy, but Donald Trump doesn't come up with brilliant things anymore. He's a dumb fuck.
Well, and that's the point, and this is where narcissists find themselves. They got too much going on, too many problems. They can't manage it, they can't juggle it, and eventually things start to fall and they ultimately fall on top of him. And that's the problem. Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, they're in a no well, the members of the House, the Republicans are in a no-win situation. They know that they have to continue the subsidies to the ACA. Otherwise, their own people, their own constituents are going to suffer, and they will suffer when it comes to the midterms in 2026. But at the same time, Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about those constituents or those politicians, and he says no or else. Don't vote for this. Don't do this. Don't bend to the Democrats at all. So now they have to decide, am I more concerned about the constituents and my future, or am I more concerned about what Donald Trump might do in my future? These Republicans in the House are in a no win situation, and they're probably freaking the fuck out at this point. What they need is one person or two persons to step up and say, fuck Donald Trump, we're doing this. And then hopefully, if they get enough people to do it, there'd be a little that Donald Trump, he's not going to primary 50 people. He's not going to do that because he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it. But somebody in the Republican Party has to have the uh, testicular fortitude to actually do something before the Republicans can even come close to saving themselves.
Well, it's looking like that person may be Marjorie Taylor Greene
Is
because she's been the voice of reason. She's been the one saying, "Hey, we got to do something about the Affordable Care Act subsidies. We need to actually." I think she did say they have to negotiate at least on the shutdown, or at least do something about the shutdown and open the government back up. I think she might have stopped just short of saying full on, negotiate with the Democrats. But she may be the one to step up and say, "Fuck you, Donald Trump," because she's pissed at him right now. And she's pissed because she wanted to run for statewide office in Georgia, Senate or governor. And the Republican Party and Donald Trump's pretty much said, "Yeah, we can't back that play. Stay where you're at." So
how
she's trying to
how
rebrand herself as kind of a moderate. And the fact that she may be the one to stand up to Donald Trump is bonkers to me.
how sad a commentary is it on the Republican Party when the person who steps up and does the right thing is dumbass Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because even if she's doing something that might help the Democrats, she still is a toxic bitch. You can't trust her, and she's not very smart.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bad sign when you have to rely on Marjorie Taylor Greene to be the voice of reason.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can't trust her. She's not very smart. I mean, when she says stuff, she'll come out and say something smart like, "Well, we have to do something about the Affordable Care Act and passing the subsidies. Our healthcare is out of control." And then she'll say a day later, "Well, we stopped the Democratic weather control apparatus that was government funded." I mean, she's not intelligent by any stretch at all. But when she's the one being a voice of reason for other shit, the rest of that Republican Party should be looking at themselves going, "Jesus Christ, what the fuck has happened to us?"
Yeah. Well, excuse me. Think about Republicans though. Tell me the one Republican you can think of that and say, that guy, that gal, she's really smart. And she's not fucking tainted by the bullshit that Donald Trump is throwing around, that she's not in the cult or he's not in the cult. There isn't one Republican I can say that isn't either tainted or is just flat out stupid.
Well, no, he's still tainted, but I would say the smartest of them I could probably think of is Mitch McConnell,
Well,
but
yeah,
he's going
but
to be out of power. But he's tainted and he's got other issues.
he's half
Um,
dead.
yeah, I mean, you know, the specter of death keeps floating around the Capitol, waiting to see which one flips first. Is it going to be Mitch McConnell or is it going to be Chuck Grassley? But anyway, I mean, there's not a decent Republican in the bunch right now. All of their main Republicans are crazy fucks because Donald Trump has pushed all the mainline Republicans out. If they stood against him in his first term, they said, "Well, you're a rhino. Vote him out." "Oh, you stood against me. Vote him out." Look at Liz, like, while Liz Cheney wasn't a uh, great person or whatever, she was intelligent. And she turned around and said, "Okay, I'm going to sit on the select committee because we need to know exactly what happened."
Yeah.
Donald Trump got her ran out of Congress. He got Adam Kinzinger to drop out of Congress. And I thought I saw something where Kinzinger is now a Democrat. Um,
Really? I wouldn't
I thought
surprise
I
me.
saw that, or at least an independent, but I thought I saw that. Um, I could be wrong there. Either way, the decent Republicans are getting pushed out all the time, and they're replaced by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, your Matt Gaetzes,
Yeah.
Ken Paxton.
Well, let's, even John Thune, who is the majority leader in the Senate, when he was nominated and put in that position, people said, well, at least he's kind of a reasonable Republican. And as I watch him now, I think they were wrong about that. I mean, he's not as bad as some of these dumb fucks, but he is very, very much in line with Donald Trump, and he will make excuses and make some. dumb moves. Like, for example, he reached out to the Democrats in Senate and said, "Listen, pass the CR, and I guarantee you we'll have some discussions and some votes on the ACA after that." And that's just the same thing with Donald Trump. I mean, how many times does Lucy have to pull the football away from Charlie Brown, for fuck's sake? Thankfully, the Democrats didn't bite on that one because that was a disaster waiting to happen. And John Thune is one of the people we thought was reasonable. I question that now.
Yeah, I thought he would be more reasonable too. But see, the Democrats did believe it the first time. They believed they would have those discussions. These are the same promises that were made in March when they passed the last CR. And
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer took so much heat for passing that CR. Oh, you kept the government open. Why'd you give in? Why'd you cave? You should have closed the government. Why'd you do it? Well, at the time, they passed a clean CR that kept the government open at existing levels. Nothing changed. And if we were still functioning under that CR, I think Democrats would have possibly signed off on this one, uh, depending on the Affordable Care Act subsidies, if they could have gotten a serious conversation. And if they would have had a serious conversation between here and there and voted on the subsidies, Democrats wouldn't be holding out right now. But then what happens? They negotiated in good faith. They passed the CR in March. We're going to fund everything to the end of the year at previous levels. No cuts. Then they passed the one big, beautiful bill, cut a bunch of money, including $1 trillion over 10 years for Medicaid. Democrats are like, what the fuck? You passed that around us with no cut or with all these cuts. And then they passed a rescissions package with even more cuts around Democratic opposition. So they're not even operating under the same terms that they agreed to in March.
No.
While this is supposedly a clean CR, it's not, because all of the cuts from the other two bills are still in there. So it's at the new levels, not previous levels, like what Republicans used to agree to, because Democrats never cut funding for a lot of things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you can't trust them. And if the Democrats did that, I mean, some people are thinking, well, the Democrats might bend ultimately when we get close to November 1st. It's my theory that if they were to bend now and back down now, they'd look far worse than they looked the last time, or even if they would have done it in the beginning. They're in for a penny, they're in for a pound. They've got to ride this to the end and hope that the Republicans back down. I kind of think that they may back down by November 1. What are your thoughts? Do you think that's feasible, or do you think they'll just ride this into the ground?
Uh, I don't know if the Democrats, I don't expect to back down at all. Even
No.
after November 1st, I don't think that happens. Um, Republicans, I don't know. I mean, I hate to put it like this, but I guess it all comes down to Mike Johnson and whether
Yeah.
he brings the House back into session at all. Because Republicans want to get to work. Some of them want to be negotiating. And what they might do, again, this is just me spitballing, because obviously I'm not in Washington, D.C. I don't have any access to politicians. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But it would not surprise me at all if Democrats and Republicans, or some of the Republicans, get together around leadership and come together with some kind of a continuing resolution that does something like kick the Medicaid cuts down the road a couple of years, extends the Affordable Care Act subsidies a couple of years, gives everybody back pay, and says, okay, we're going to fund everything till January 12th or some bullshit. And that they have a deal around leadership, and they have a plan going in. So, okay, well, Mike Johnson has until this date to bring us back, and we'll vote him out if he doesn't. Um, and they start working without leadership and send a clear message to the rest of them that they're not necessarily, even though the party's in control, the people they've elected to be in control of the party aren't running the asylum anymore.
You know what the most telling thing about this whole situation is? We're talking about a continuing resolution. Now it's Congress's job to put together a budget, negotiate and compromise and complete a budget. How long have we been doing CRs? They haven't been able to come up with a full budget for years, it seems. At least a couple of years, maybe 3 years. And they can't even come up with a budget, which is one of the basic responsibilities of Congress. It's just this continuing resolution. We can't figure it out. We can't figure it out. We'll just keep it going for a while. Kick the can down the road, as you said. That is really a horrible failure of Congress in general, mostly the Republicans because of what they're doing. But why can't we get a fucking budget? Why can't we get them to do their fucking job?
Well, because Republicans never want to give in to Democrats, uh, because Democrats want to properly fund aid programs for people in need, and Republicans have this idea that at least Republican politicians and they have sold their constituents on this idea that it is nothing but immigrants and lazy people on benefits that it's some kind of a bad thing to be on government assistance, and it's not because people actually just need the assistance from time to time, but that's what they get people to believe.
Right.
And then uh Donald Trump, the Republican Democrats don't want to agree with Republicans because they do things like what they did in the one big beautiful bill and come through and want to cut all those spending for uh, a bunch of programs. So they can never agree in enough detail. So the best they can get both sides to agree on is, hey, well, since we can't agree on should we cut, should we not cut, should we increase, let's just keep spending where it has been and we'll kick it down the road and we'll keep trying to see if we can come to some kind of a compromise for in 6 months or 3 months or whatever. It has been a failure of both parties, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we've actually passed a full on budget. Uh, maybe I don't think we did one under Donald Trump. I don't think we passed his tax plan and his tax and spending plan. That might have been the last one. I think that might have been the last one, and that was after a 35-day shutdown, but I could be wrong.
I'm gonna check it here because when was the last time U.S. Congress passed a full budget?
And passed
And
one
I'm
on
using,
time?
well, I don't even care if it was on time, just passed one. We're asking AI here now. We're doing this live. Well, on, let's see what it says. There's the last time the U.S. Congress passed all of its required regular appropriations bills, which collectively make up the discretionary portion of the full budget, on time for a new fiscal year. What do you think it was? What fiscal year do you think it was? A full budget on time?
You know, 2009?
Nope. 1997. What's that? 27, 28 years? 28 fucking years. So my point is this. If your one job is to pass a budget and you haven't been able to pass a full budget on time in 28 fucking years, why do we have a Congress? I mean, Congress is supposed to be a negotiation and compromise and come up with a plan that suits everybody's needs. They say the Senate is the most deliberative body, but they can't come up with a full budget on time in 28 years, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, funny point about that, though. Now that you say it's 97, that means that was done during the Clinton years, and he left
Yeah.
office with us in a surplus where we were
Yeah.
actually paying down our debts, and then Republicans fucked it up. But we haven't been able to pass a budget in that long. We have a Congress because that was their version of what Parliament was when they passed, the Constitution.
Right.
But when you say that, it just reminds me of a line from the musical 1776. And obviously, it's about the signing of the Declaration of Independence and everything. And there's a line in the very beginning where the great William Daniels, who most people know as Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World,
Right, right.
plays John Adams. And at one point, he walks out of Congress after getting pissed off. He kind of looks to the sky and he says something to God. I don't remember how he starts it out. He's like, an all knowing creator. Good God. He goes, and good God, you send us Congress. Is that fair? You
That's pretty
know,
much true. Yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I see it now. I still laugh about it. Like every now and then I will watch that musical. There's a lot of good lines in there, but they were fighting congressional dysfunction way back then already. It hasn't gotten much better. We're not passing budgets yearly. I mean, one of the things we could do, or maybe should do, is pass a constitutional amendment. And I know they're hard to do. Something like this, where if Congress doesn't pass a new funding bill on time, at least funding stays the exact same as to the previous funding bill that Congress approved, and take any government shutdowns, out of the equation. No shutdowns, none of that. And then if they want to change any sort of funding, they've got to negotiate. They've got to pass something, and that might make it better. I don't know, but we don't want to fund the government, so we're going to shut it down. We don't want to negotiate, so we're going to let it shut down, but we're going to blame the other side for it shutting down, like Republicans are doing right now. I mean, they had the ability to negotiate. They haven't done that.
Yeah.
They have the ability to bypass the filibuster. They're not doing that. They're literally doing nothing to end this government shutdown.
No, they're doing absolutely nothing. And, we look at Donald Trump pretty much destroying the Republican Party. It bears no resemblance to what the Republican Party once looked like. We've got Congress not doing anything. Fuck, they've been on vacation. I was talking to Will about this, and in the last 4 months, in the last 4 months, Republicans have been in session in Congress, in the House, 14 days. 420 days, less, just maybe 12% of the time they're supposed to be working, they were in session, but the remaining 78%, they weren't working. Now here's my question. Didn't Doge run around looking for wasted money? When you think about all those members of Congress that are making $175,000 a year or more, that sounds like a fucking huge waste.
Sounds like that to me. But then you said Doge and looking for wasted money. Brings us back to the ballroom.
Yeah.
232, 300 million, whatever the price tag is going to. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being $1 billion before it's all said and done. And that's if we don't have to do any major fixing of any damage caused because this was shoddy work because Donald Trump found the cheapest person he could scam out of doing the work. Um, a whole bunch of waste coming out of Republicans. But Republicans like to tell everybody that Democrats are the party of waste. Yet, typically, Democrats not only have the better economy, but they also end up usually paying down or putting us in a better financial situation than Republicans ever do.
Yeah, people have to understand that the Republicans think it's okay to build a ballroom worth $300 million. Republicans think it's a good idea to allow Donald Trump to take a free plane and then put $200 million into renovating it. Republicans think it's okay um, to buy a $170 million jet for Kristi Noem and spend all and give tax cuts to wealthy people who don't need the money. They think that's okay. But the moment kids need food, people need reasonably priced health care, anybody in the middle class, oh, we can't afford that. That's just too much. That's the problem I have with these people. If you were just you were just very tight fisted and you didn't spend any money, I could say, at least I understand it. I wouldn't agree with you, but I understand it. But you're wasting money like a drunken sailor on the things you want. But when the people of this country need something, you say, fuck no, that's too much. That's where
Yeah,
that's criminal to me in my mind.
yeah, that's the way Republicans used to be, though. They used to be fiscally conservative. They kept saying we got to cut the spending, got to cut the spending, and they weren't doing these ridiculous spending projects. But see, you want to talk about being fiscally conservative, and then you have at the head of your party a billionaire, supposed billionaire, who loves the lavish lifestyle and wants to spend America's money like it's going out of style. Those two things don't jive. And you can't, on one hand, say we've got to do all this. We can't afford to keep paying for our debt and deficit, et cetera. We got to cut spending while allowing him to spend like it's going out of style and like he has free reign over a checking account that's bottomless.
Well, you mentioned Donald Trump being a billionaire, and prior to the election, I agreed with you, and I said Donald Trump is not a billionaire. It's just bullshit. It's just him talking. But I would probably say right now, after 10 months in office, he is a billionaire. And he's a billionaire off the backs of everybody listening to this program, uh, people throughout this country. He got to be a billionaire because he grifted off the people of this country. And thank you to the Republicans for allowing him to do that. They are the ones that are responsible for Donald Trump's crimes. They could hold him accountable. They choose not to hold him accountable. And Donald Trump probably is a billionaire right now, stolen money from us.
Yeah, and what Republicans don't realize, they have every opportunity to hold him accountable. He's becoming a billionaire on taxpayer money. But, we keep talking about how big the midterms could be.
Yeah.
Democrats getting control of the House and the Senate, potentially, et cetera. All of this is campaign ad fuel for the Democrats if they can message right. You know, while the government was shut down, what did Republicans allow Donald Trump to do? He tore down the White House to build a ballroom. While you didn't get your food stamps, he was working on a $230 million, $300 million ballroom. That view is going to be horrible, and it's going to be hard for them to counter that in their races. When these ads start hitting, Republicans may finally realize how bad they fucked up.
We realize it. How come they can't realize it yet? How come they need a little more information before they decide, wow, we fucked up? I mean, it's just silly to not realize that you're in trouble. You got farmers, you got the economy, you got the deportations, you got the crimes against the Constitution, you've got all this shit going on, and now you're thinking, we might have a problem here. That's either really dumb or really fucking evil.
Yeah, I think the reason they don't believe it is because they have barricaded themselves in their echo chambers, like places like Fox News, um, and because they have bought into their own hype. They believe the stories they tell, that they have some kind of a mandate to save America or something. Um, so they believe they're way more popular than they really are. And they are going to be blindsided when the midterms hit and they get utterly destroyed. And some of them are going to be blindsided when they go into their primaries and they get primaried out,
Yeah.
um, just because, you know, Donald Trump said to, or because they weren't loyal enough, or what have you. It is going to be bad for Republicans all the way around.
Yeah, it's not going to work very well for them. Um, I can say that right now, and it seems pretty obvious. I've been wrong before, but um, Republicans are in some deep trouble, and I don't even know if they could pull themselves out. Maybe that's why they're not worried about the shutdown because they know they've already lost. That's conceivable. We're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us. Let people know where to find you, They should be looking for you. They should be listening to you. So tell them how to do that.
Uh, the best places to find me is TikTok, Analytical Iowan over on TikTok. I put all of my TikToks up on YouTube. Also on YouTube, you can find the Analytical Iowan podcast. Again, Analytical Iowan on YouTube as well. All of my TikToks end up on Blue Sky. Same thing, Analytical Iowan. And then the audio from my TikToks and my podcast is available on Spotify. Analytical Iowan over there on Spotify.
By all means, check that out. Now, you just started the podcast thing and you're doing one every day. I
Yes.
thought I was the only one dumb enough to do that, but apparently there's two of us. How's that going so far? How you feeling about it?
Feeling pretty good. It's still getting the swing of getting it into my schedule with making it work around, you know, unlike some people, I'm not lucky enough to be retired. So I do have to have time to get my job in there and do those kind of things. But I'm finding ways to make it work. Um, and then it's just going to be, making sure it's up every single day.
Yeah. Well, that consistency is important. I think people feel better when they get some kind of information that they can validate and that's actually true. Uh, the opposite is the case with me. I organize my schedule around my podcast and my TikToks because, I don't work. So that's what I got to do. My wife will say, let's go do this. And I go, I got to talk to Ed today. And okay, we'll wait a couple hours and then we'll go out. But by all means, check out Eric's podcast. He offers some great information. I listen to him all the time, and it helps me put together ideas for whatever I'm doing. And it'll be valuable to you. Check him out on YouTube or TikTok or Blue Sky, and you'll be glad you did. So thank you, Eric, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I know it was kind of a short turnaround from the last time I was on, and look forward to being on again next time.
I'm a firm believer there is no such thing as too much of a good thing. So fuck it. And it's my show. We'll do whatever the fuck I want or whatever the listeners want. That's probably more likely to be the case. But they always look forward to having you on. So I know that would be no problem. All right. Those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day and we will talk to you again tomorrow.